So I'll take you on a walk through the garden. Start with the gate here that helps to keep the chickens safe. Just a little pool gate that we put in. It's the middle of summer here in New Zealand at the moment. It's early February and it's very hot. And just to my left here we've got the greenhouse or the hoop house, which I can do another complete tour on another time. It's very warm in there at the moment, which is why we're not going in, but you can see that some of it's shaded by the house still, which is a good thing at this time of the year, and things are growing happily in here, where I start a few things for the main garden, and we've got this closed at the moment to keep out chickens, cats and white butterflies. And so we come down the side of the garden here. This is the north side of the garden, so it's actually south facing. And we've got a worm bin over here, converting kitchen waste to wonderful worm droppings or vermifuge and worm tea, and a mandarin, a small mandarin, and then kind of a chaotic area and a nice tree. The name escapes me at the moment, so I will come in with, it's a guava. It's a yellow guava, so it's going to take me a while to remember a lot of these things. We've gotten rid of most of the grass except for this little patch here that the chickens love, and we just couldn't take it off them. So we're under weed mat and wood chips for the pathways, and we're slowly getting little bits of concrete in, the odd broken one along the way. We've got a feed jar up in the far corner there with some sugar cane next to it. Down in the front we've got some zucchinis that have just not done well this year. Everybody I speak to has had a really bad time with their zucchinis, so I know it's not just me, but I'm hoping that we might get some female flowers eventually and some zucchinis out of here. I have some tree lupins which I'm growing, and some tree lucerne which the chickens are absolutely loving, but in amongst there is a potato patch, and I put the little tree lucerne and these nursery plants in there just to try and keep the chickens out, but they seem to stay out of the potatoes of their own accord anyway. And then we've got a beehive here which shouldn't be there, but it's just where they swarmed and where they stayed, and I'm hoping to combine that with another couple of beehives at the other end of the garden later in the year. And we've got some sweet corn coming, and then a big olive tree above that. And then you can see next to the olive we've got the start of the peaches, which I'm harvesting at the moment. More pathway up into the garden. So as we stand here looking up the garden, you can see it's a small space, your average back garden really. Or we're working towards turning it into a food forest is what we've decided. So we've got some paths up there, we've got the chickens sitting in the middle of the garden. They're going to pretty much be our composting area. They're on a deep litter system, so basically they're going to be the engine room of the garden. We've got an apple tree here in the area that the chickens like to sit while it's hot, like it is at the moment. And what we're hoping will happen in winter, or what did happen, is there's obviously no leaves on that apple tree, and so the hoop house is going to get a lot more sun. And then if you're looking back towards the side of the house, that's pretty much our sitting area out the side of the house, and we've got a grapevine that sits over the arbour on the side of the house there, and you can see how warm and beautiful and sunny it is today here in New Zealand. It's just beautiful. So as we come back this way down the garden, so we're heading with north pretty much directly behind me, and we're looking south into the garden. And I've made a few fundamental errors when I've been putting trees in here. Some of the trees behind me are not deciduous, which is what they should be, because what I worked out I should be doing is making sure that I've got light going through to the rest of the garden. But as you'll see, a lot of the garden's developing of its own accord anyway, and I'm finding that a lot of what I'm doing is just a matter of experimenting and seeing what works. So at the moment we've got a beehive here which is facing south, which is quite wrong for it. But as I say, I'm hoping that I will be able to put that in with another beehive in the other apiary that we've got. But the bees are actually quite happy down here. They're doing their thing. It's not our strongest beehive, but for the fact that it only started this year, it's doing well, and the girls are doing their thing, and they've had lots of drones in here this year, so that's slowed their, well, that'll definitely slow their honey production. But I was in here a couple of days ago, and they're building plenty of stores for themselves, which is the main thing for them. So we've got the corn that's doing its thing here, and I've got fennel up here. I love the fennel, and my chickens love the fennel, and they've eaten all the bottom leaves of this fennel, but I've left it to flower simply because it attracts some amazing parasitic insects into the garden, and I love that. So I'm all about not spraying and doing what I can. So a lot of my trees are not looking brilliant because of the fact that I don't spray things, but that's just how it's going for the moment. And then we've got the apple tree over here, which the girls are just loving hiding out underneath. We've got some beautiful apples coming. It's a triple grafted apple, and it produces beautifully every year, and it's starting to look like it's going to again this year. And I haven't treated anything for codlin moth, so there's the odd little bit of codlin moth in here, but I'm hoping that with the girls scratching around underneath it for most of this season, they will get the larvae that are living in the ground down here, because like I say, this is just one of their favourite places, and you can see the apples are just beautiful. I'm really, really happy with them. And then the girls have a little drinking station down here, which they love, and I've also got little rocks in there because the bees and the wasps and other little insects come and land on those, and everybody gets a good drink. So I've got quite a few water stations around the garden, which are really important at this time of the year. There's another one over here, absolutely surrounded by yarrow. The girls love the yarrow. You may be able to see that a lot of these 3 big back beds are netted, and that was mainly just to keep the chickens out, and also to keep the white butterfly off, because I have terrible white butterfly problem. That's a grapefruit that's hiding down the back. People will probably tell me that I'm planting too closely, but that's the way I've been doing things, and we still get lots and lots of fruit off most of these trees. You won't find many flowers, but there's a lovely little one. I've got some cucumber in here which has done nothing, perhaps because it's got too much shade, but we'll see. And the last of the sunflowers are sort of withering and doing their bits, but I've got some peas that are starting here, and we have stink bugs. And look at them there, just hanging out. So the girls, the chickens, have been getting a lot of these, but I do hate these little beasties, and the girls, I'm hoping, will start clearing a lot of them out. I haven't seen as many this year as I would ordinarily, but as I said, I'm not spraying, so we just have to wait and see. We have to wait for the plants to manage themselves. Is a lot of what I do. These are a bean that's called a pea, and I can't remember the name, so I'll have the names of things in the notes. Chicken feathers everywhere, but the beans have done really well in here, and I'm letting them go to dried pod stage, and then I'll be saving the pods. So things are doing what they should, and I'm quite pleased with how they're growing. Pecking bits are basically the girls out here. You can see the pecking level, where they've been and what they've been chewing on the leaves and bits and pieces, but it's pretty dense in there, and there's quite a few good beans that have been coming out of there. And then this is pretty much the centre of the garden. Girls just stopping over here now to have a drink, and they also like chewing the flowers off any of the it's not borage. Having a moment, but menopausal moment is what I'm having. But the girls just down here having a nice time, having a little drink. You probably hear the neighbour calling the dog. But the girls will spend most of their afternoon now under this tree. They've been dust bathing in a little corner over there by the bucket, behind that bucket, which is a big hole that they're digging. And dust bathing in. And as I said, when we were setting up the garden, we were going to chip all of this area, which is why the edging's a bit rough at the moment, because we were expecting to fill this whole green area with chips. And the girls just love it in here so much, we just couldn't do it. So we're going to have to straighten out the edging and leave them this little bit of greenery down here, which they tend to mow. I do the edges occasionally, but they're really enjoying grazing on it. So we are going to end up with a little bit of green unless it gets a bit messy. I've thrown a few chips down there because they're spending a lot of time down there, and it was getting a little bit interesting smelling. It's probably the way to say it, but things are on the improve, I would say. So girls having a good time. This is going to be pretty much a herb bed. That's a pineapple in the middle that a friend gave me. And this is a Golden Queen peach down here that I grew from a seedling. And I'm putting a lot of my herbs in here. Got a lot of lavenders because the girls are lavender aracunas. And I just thought it was really nice to have lavenders in the garden. So a lot of lavenders that I've grown from seed. And lavender doesn't grow true to form when you grow it from seed, so you never quite know what you're going to get. But these lavenders are coming along nicely. I've got some scented Pelagoniums. I use the scented Pelagoniums on this. You can see they're still in their pots. They've been tiny things and they've been growing out here quite happily in their pots, and I've just been waiting for them to get big enough to pot on and put in the garden. Same with a lot of these herbs. They came as teeny, tiny little herbs, and now they're just getting big enough to put in the garden. So I'll be digging a hole and popping them in pretty soon. I just thought I'd get a video underway anyway. You can see we've got some rue and some pyrethrum and sage and bits and pieces around the edge there. The Pelagoniums, I love them. You just rub the leaves like this, and the scent is beautiful. This is a rose Pelagonium, and I just break them up and put them in the girls' nesting boxes, and where they sleep at night in their roost, under their roosts, and it just makes the whole chicken house smell beautiful. Aside from the fact that, you know, it smells like a working compost heap, there is no horrible chicken smell, which is nice, and that's basically because we've got it on a deep litter. And this is a lovely pear tree that is growing really well. You can see that the pears are coming along beautifully here. The noise is Catherine at the back calling the other three to come in because she wants to have something to eat and she doesn't want to do it on her own, so she's making them come with her. But this tree was just a tiny little tree when we put it in. You can see it's growing beautifully. It's healthy, and I can only put that down to the fact that it's got the comfrey growing around the bottom that the girls like eating the flowers of, and it's just doing its thing. It's not been sprayed with anything, so I'm really pleased with how it's doing and how well it's growing. We've got some asparagus here that's done its thing and gone to that beautiful fern-like state that they go to. And then we've got some very well chewed bits of greens down here that are just about ready to come out. But you can see that the peaches are doing amazingly well. These are the river peaches. And I've just got more than I can bottle this year, and I put that down to having the bees in the garden. They've just been amazing this year. It's pretty much time to get them all out, and we're really thrilled with how they're going. Over here we've just had some pretty little sunflowers that have been doing their thing up next to the girls here. I'm bringing a few bees in. Not that I really need to bring any bees in. And just a few bits and pieces that I'm trying to grow down the side of the chicken house here. When we built this, it was just like such a shock to have it in the middle of the garden. But it's not so bad now. I've got some hops growing up the side here, which are starting to take off and do well. I have to put netting around everything because the girls get their little feet in there and start digging everything out. But that's just how it is. Catherine in there having a few things to chew on, calling some of the other girls in. And while I'm standing here, the beautiful scent of the peaches is amazing, you know, and you can see they're just everywhere. So, and I've already taken just a whole lot of them out of the garden. So these peaches, they just grow beautifully. and I'm really, really pleased to have them here. We've got another pear tree that's growing really well here. We're kind of coming down to the working end of the garden. More beautiful pears. As I say, nothing's been sprayed, so this is what I call my messy side of the garden. It's basically where the apiary is, and we started with the one beehive, and we've got 3 now, which was never the intention, but it's just how things are. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to combine this small hive here, with the other small hive that's behind us now, and but we'll just see what happens. We'll see how things are looking in another month or so when I've got to start thinking about watering them down. We've got some water tanks back here with another grape one. We've got some banana plums that are doing their thing. These came from Powwow. We've got another set of bananas coming here. We've got one on top of the very cobwebby shed, but when you don't spray, that's what you get, lots of spiders who are your friends. And we've got a compost bin going here, and a very active compost patch happening here. Nasturtiums running along the back fence. I love to use nasturtiums as a natural ground cover, so that's the only place I've got to keep growing at the moment, because I've cleared them out from the other places I've been using them. And then really that's your view back up the garden, looking north, up past the chicken coop, through the pear trees and across to the hoop house. You can see we've got, we're living in the middle of suburbia, so this is just a big suburban experiment. Down the back of the chicken house, I've got some feverfew that I'm trying to grow up the back here. We're going to be replacing this chicken house because we started with one that's just not doing a good job. So the top half will be coming off and will be being replaced. A little job. And then we've got a navel orange here, which has been seriously attacked, like most of my citrus, by ants and all kinds of dreadful things. But the spray that I am using is a bit of neem oil, and that seems to be sorting things out, but it's taking a while. The ants around here have just been amazingly bad this year. And you can see just across the back there's another feed jar off in the corner. And we've got some, as we come back around again, we've got some berries doing their thing in the back here behind the beehive. So quite a productive garden. Everything in here has got a use. Whether it's edible for me, or edible for the chickens, or it's fixing nitrogen somewhere, or it's growing foliage for the birds to eat. We've only got 3 down here having a nibble at the moment, because I've got one that decided yesterday she's going to be plucky. But as you can see, they're on quite a deep litter system. So the idea is that we just keep putting bits and pieces in here for them, and I like to think that I'm going to be able to do away with a compost pile and just put everything in here for the girls to process. But that's, like so many other things, a work in process. But that's the idea anyway. But they're doing a really good job here at the moment. They've not been on this for very long, but it seems to be coming along nicely. And as you can see, we're harvesting the water off the top of the roof into a little container here for them and for the garden. So anyway, that's pretty much the garden as it is at the moment. Really looking forward to the production that's coming from the apple trees, and we've been having a really good year in the hoop house, and I may do another hoop house video soon, but that's probably it for now. Thanks for stopping by.